Raise your hand. Who wants more money, more money, more money, more money, more money, more? Raise your hands. Look around. Look around. Yes, you do. So guess what? There's 3 things that you guys have. So today's going to be an educational journey to where we're going to take you to show you how you can be different. Are you guys all ready to be different? Yeah. You already are because you just showed up here today. So give yourselves a round of applause. So you're going to get education, which will help you get a what? Everybody's yelling out. Ah! Yes. And will make you what? Money. Good. Oh my gosh, this is easy, huh? I think they're almost ready for you. Okay. All right. So without further ado, there's going to be a lot more. So I'm going to ask you this ground rules today. Please keep your stuff clean and keep your valuables close. No one's going to steal them. That's safe here, by the way. But just carry them with you. Clean up. Clean up. If you make a mess, please clean it up. We're going to give you lunch today, by the way. Everybody clap. You guys will get fed today, so don't worry about the food. Don't worry about. There's water back there, so hydrate. You have to hydrate because that's a good thing. We don't want anybody passing out here because he's going to get you excited. All right? Let's see, what else? Did I forget anything else? Good. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to bring out the man of the hour, the man of the day right now. And whoa, I forgot some. Volunteers, stand up, please. Volunteers, stand up. Without them, and one day you might be able to become a volunteer for your school. Thank you guys so much. Go ahead and have a seat. Thank you, man. Without further ado, Mr. Tiger Todd. Woo!
Well, I am so delighted to be here. How many do not know who I am and are wondering where he got the name Tiger? All right, well, let's just diffuse that right now. Let's see. So I was a hairy baby. They named me Tiger. I got beat up like every other day in elementary school by a girl. My gift every Christmas, hundreds of these. This one here, I think, even plays music. What song is that? I'm so tired of it. I was doing consulting in Mexico, and I went to this buffet, and this guy comes from the buffet. It was so funny because here. He runs in the back. He brings out a sauce of frosted flakes. Of course, in Mexico, they are anybody zucaritas, right? So he runs out here. That's fine. And so make fun of all you want today about my name. I didn't get to pick it. But maybe it's why I stumbled upon this idea of hero school. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, but before I do, would you permit me to give a couple of gifts away to some real heroes in my life? Is that all right? We'll take a couple minutes for that. Number one, so Kevin Child. Kevin is running for the school board. Kevin volunteers. Kevin is the guy who built his own trailer and own sound system and his own barbecue on the trailer and grabs a bunch of food at Albertsons and cooks for the families who've lost kids in gang violence right in their neighborhoods within hours of a shooting. This is who this Kevin Child dude is, the broker, the real estate guy who said he was dyslexic. And so I call him Captain America. I don't really buy very expensive gifts for him, but Kevin, are you out here somewhere? So I figured since he wanted more money, I'd give him a little Captain America coin bank, because that seemed reasonable, right? So give it up for my Captain America. A lot of money, and I'll never sell those prices. There you go. There you go. $14 on Amazon.com. Anyway, and then there's this kid, Laquan, who I didn't see in 10 years, and then he shows back up. He became a state track champion football player, and then was paralyzed from the neck down in a football game at Green Valley High School. And within 3 weeks, somehow altered universal particles to get himself to walk again. Unbelievable, young man. And you get the Spider-Man watch. Next year. And then lastly, There's a young lady in the back, Emily. Start walking forward. So you get volunteers. We call them agents because, again, this is Hero School. And then you work after a while and show some leadership skills, and then you find out that they become special agents, just like in the movies. And you know, when I was 20 years old, I couldn't lead myself. And this young lady has led so many people to show them how to become community contributors. I just want to applaud her. Give her up for Emily. You get my favorite Hello Kitty watch. I didn't buy this, by the way, because you know when people come and say hi, Tiger, Hello Kitty, it's the same thing. So there you are. Here's my watch. There you are. Edward, please wave your hands there. Edward runs large training centers. Yeah, give up the larger training centers because they've made this room available, this space available, and better than that, especially if you're here at Hero School today, they have made education available to you by providing at least $3,000 worth of scholarship to learn the stuff only 16-year-olds know, i.e. technology. So, so I want you to meet Ed today, and thank you. Are we going to hand these awards out to Morgan Village later? So it's good to you.
Well, let's hold on to them for now.
We're going to hold on and see if we have some people to give some other awards to.
Correct.
I'm just going to go do what I maybe do best.
Perfect. Terrific.
All right. All right. Well, today we're going to talk about movies. And oddly enough, they tell you in coaching, well, when I tell you this, I think it was the How to Win Friends and Influence People. Anyone ever heard of that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People? How to Win Friends. They say you want to start by getting 3 yeses. Unfortunately, I watched a lot of movies. So I'm not trying to get 3 yeses because in every movie, you guys have seen movies, right? Movies, well, let's go through some movies and see if we're on the same page. Have you seen movies about pirates? Anybody? Movies about, oh look, about gladiators. Movies about cops. This is so fun. Movies about cops. Oh, hockey players. Anyone believe a hockey player? There's about dentistry. You can see that. Great. We obviously have movies about love. Right? And love. And love. Okay, and then there are movies about family. And if you saw Halloween 2, it says family is forever. You better hope not. Oh, yeah, sorry. And movies about family. My favorite family films. And thank God for Sylvester Stallone, we now have movies for senior citizens. God bless him. There is hope for us white-haired people. It's so great. It's so great. And we also have movies about homeless people. And this is a very interesting one because you may or may not know this, but I am the unofficial world record holder for getting homeless people off the streets. Unofficial. Now, how is that even possible? We're going to talk a little bit about that today, but I'm going to give you my secret. The secret was, in 1995, when I retired from my business and followed the money I was donating to a group that said they were helping the homeless, I ended up in a park across the freeway, Ethel Pearson Park, where 1,854 quote-unquote homeless people were lined up to get food. Food that I was paying for. And I just wanted to talk to them. And but I realized, as I look back, I realized that the difference is, my secret was, I thought they were human. I believe they were human. And why is that? Well, what do we know about humans? What do we know about humans? Who can tell me? So the difference between humans and animals. Does anyone have an answer? The difference between humans and animals. Yes. They have feelings. My dog resents that. What else? Difference between humans and animals. Humans and our pets. Any differences? What do you got? Yeah, conscience. All right, sure. Live inside, right? Dogs live outside, okay. All right, what else? Love. Oh. Well, now wait, there's a song coming to mind. I think it was Michael Jackson. He was a boy. He said, they call it puppy love. Puppy stuff. I guess not. Huh. Well, here's my theory. Oh, come on. There isn't any difference. All right. I'm going to share with you something I discovered. I usually say this earlier, but because you guys are already so smart. Now imagine me. I have no education. I had no, let's say I was a math major in college. I sang a little opera. I retired from the electronics business. I was into sound systems, so I just played music. I walk in there with all these people that apparently know about homelessness, sociology, psychology. And yet, think about my eyes. I was an entrepreneur. I mean, who wants to own their own business? Who wants to start their own business? All right. Who had their own business and needs to fix it? Okay, want to fix that too. Okay, because we're going to talk not just about jobs, but about if you want to start a business today. Because entrepreneurship is really, really dear to me. It offered me the freedom. I started my business right while I was in college, while I was singing opera, while I was mowing fairways at a golf course and making tables at night to pay for my college. And one of the things that I know from an entrepreneur is there are like 4 things entrepreneurs see the world through. For example, if this was your business, if you start a business, let's say, sir, you have $150,000 that you've saved from hard work, and you decide to start a business. You sink all that $150,000 in. What else could you do with $150,000 besides start a business? Buy a house, buy a boat, buy a car, party like there's no tomorrow. What else you got, right? Right? And yet what entrepreneurs do is we risk everything for something big because we think this is important. So I walked up and down this line in 1995. But remember, I'm seeing everything through like entrepreneurial eyes. And one of the things I bought, just a little presupposition about humans, is something I learned from education and entrepreneurship together. We're going to combine a few things today. One of the things is this. One of the things I know, the difference between humans and animals, might not be able to be explained, but it can be illustrated. So you guys remember elementary school? You guys remember like a teacher from elementary school, middle school, maybe high school that was like important to you? Anyone? If you could think right now where you were and shout out the name. Everyone. You think about that? Can you see yourselves when you were in junior high? Remember? You don't look the same, do you? Or you do? You look exactly the same. What is your beauty secret? Here's what happens in middle school and high school, and I think this will help us determine that difference between humans and animals, something that I somehow picked up along the way. We send a human being to school, and let's say it's 3rd grade. We give them a 3rd grade teacher, and we teach that student 3rd grade, 3rd grade, 3rd grade, 3rd grade. And if they do the homework, they get too good for 3rd grade, what happens? They not just go to the 4th, they change into 4th graders. So then what we do is we have to get them a different expert, a 4th grade expert. And now we're teaching 4th grade, 4th grade, 4th grade, get too good for 4th grade, to change into 5th graders. Now, I don't know about the ladies, but if you're a dude, and you've undergone this change from 3rd to 4th to 5th, it's a little different, right? We walk through the school, and now with 5th graders, we see those 3rd graders, we walk up and we punk them, right? We go like, right? Because we have this idea that we have changed. And we keep changing. We're supposed to change into high school students, right? We're finishing 12th grade. We're supposed to change into graduates. Are you understanding? Okay. Now, in this process of why we put a human in school, maybe best illustrated, let's say you graduate high school, you go through university. You work really hard, you get a scholarship to USC, University of Southern California, and you enter their engineering program. Now you get a professor or a bunch of teachers that are masters in engineering. Now we teach you engineering. You do the assignments, get too good for it, right? You learn engineering, you change into what? Engineering. Yeah. So, right? If you learn accounting, you change into what? Learn law, become what? Learn psychology, become what? Learn plumbing, become? So here is the primary fundamental difference, and maybe the core to hero school, which is really human school, is that unlike every other species on the planet, humans become what they learn. Or just take them all this way. Now we're going to say some things today, and you're going to grunt. You're going to the humans become what they learn. If we sat a horse in the chair, we just taught the horse engineering. Right? At the end of 4 years, right? So it's not just that we become what we learn, but now it presupposes that there's something inside the human that has the power of transformation. The power to change, something horses don't have, something dogs don't have, pigs don't have. And then there was a time I went to a school, I went to one school, which was a little behavioral school, and I was like 12-year-olds in their chairs, and I was talking about careers, and unfortunately, I called them kids. Now, young people apparently don't want to be called kids. Well, it is, after all, a baby goat. And well, one kid didn't like that. So he popped up from his chair, got all up in my grill. Actually, he got my belly button because it's about that high. And he said, "I ain't no kid, I'm a chief." I don't know what to do. Parents, teachers, I don't know what to do. So instinctively, I just did this. I said, "Yes, you are. So cute. But you're just a little G." It's funnier to me when people go like that. Oh, that didn't really happen. But this other thing, I was at a school here in Las Vegas, middle school. I was going to go into career or something. I was at this school. And there's this pack of guys. I got my mind on my the pack of guys hanging out with each other at the front of the school. And I walk up, and one of them peels off from his group. When he walks up to me, and he's got that walk. I don't know if you practice this walk, right? And he leans into me, and he says, "Yo, what up, dog?" And I said, "My God, I'm too late. I got dogs." And then I heard other kids saying that are, well, I heard women saying that are pigs. I heard sheep. I was going through my movie posters at one school, and I was actually going through one of my favorites, Forrest Gump. It's like the Dumb and Dumber series, right? And then, of course, there was Dumb and Dumber. But I had like 450 kids in this gym. It was actually in Henderson, White Middle School, Henderson, Nevada. And I got to this poster here. No sooner had I held up the poster, 450 kids, I'm running back and forth, sweating like crazy. No sooner had I held up the poster, the words "Jackass the movie" escaped my lips. From a section of the bleachers right over here, 11 of the ugliest white kids I've ever seen just shot up from the bleachers and went, "Yeah, it's my movie." Now, this is a very interesting phenomenon, considering that humans become what they learn. No animal can, and yet we call humans kids. We call them dogs. We said they're pigs, sheep, Jackass the movie. Now it's real, right? Okay, so this really got me thinking. What does it mean to be human? And if we have this superpower, this power of transformation, do the psychologists know how to tap it? Right? Do the educators know how to tap it? How can we tap this on purpose, or why is it? There's a guy in the 1970s who did a study. Let me tell you about something. This study was interesting. No one published it for probably 20 years. He did a study that in the old days we didn't have online encyclopedias. We had Encyclopedia Britannica. Remember those? But here's his study, and here was his theory on a type of human he wanted to find out who accessed the power. He said anybody, any single person in there, you might have countries in there, right? You might have types of industry in an encyclopedia. But he studied the people, and anyone that had more than a half page written about them. Right? That's kind of some of the stuff, isn't it? More than a half page. And he discovered some things about these kinds of people and what they did. We're going to share a little bit about that. I just know that I studied, I studied 55 years of research in the American Psychological Association, trying to find out some of the things that we deal with every day. And this morning, we're going to be done here in about an hour and a half to have lunch. These are things you're going to find out that you already know. But if you don't know what you're doing on purpose, you never experience the power. So that's why when you look at the list that we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about some movies. All I did is found them because we the world sometimes it takes 4 years to get a college degree. It might take a year and a half to go back and get your high school diploma if you. And I want you to start digging deeper to what's impossible. What's impossible? And maybe let's set the bar. Two, conflict and obstacles. Just say it again. And number three, accomplish the impossible. Okay, now to talk about the conflict for a moment, because I started there. Church, they want you to say amen. Dale Carnegie wants you to get 3 yeses. In the movies, they actually try on purpose to create conflict. And they found that that is the catalyst, the essential ingredient to accomplishing the impossible. Yeses is going, they don't make movies about people who get invited out to lunch. Yes, you got invited out to lunch. Yes, I'll throw down my $11 and watch an IMAX movie. We only want to see something that's where someone gets to overcome circumstances, but more than that, accomplish something that somebody else will. Now, here's the second part to that. Conflict and obstacles are 2 parts of the same person in a film. Obstacles are what happens on the outside of us. Conflict is what happens on the inside. Do you ever wonder why they called psychologists shrinks?
Yep, shrink the problem.
Shrink the problem. You know what they typically do though? They try to shrink the individual. We're going to try to do just the opposite. We're going to try to make the outside of your world as big as the inside. But you have a lot more to do in this world than you've been doing. I'm just convinced you don't have the right math. So when I show you the math, I'll give you the math, take good notes. You'll get some handouts. I need you to think from the movies, not just this morning, but the afternoon. We're going to shift gears after lunch. Now we're going to start to talk about things practical, jobs. We're going to talk about employment and entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about the things you want. But I have to share a few secrets here. So I'm going to draw on the board this conflict and obstacles in terms of a character's timeline in the films. I'll draw on the board with this pen. There we go. So they say we're supposed to go from A to B. They say we're supposed to, follow this path. Let's say we're in Las Vegas and we're going to get to Los Angeles. And the distance, if we were going 70 miles an hour, this would probably take 4 hours to get there. Is that about right for anybody that's traveling? Right, if you're driving 70 miles an hour, right? We're going to also talk about the fact that somewhere about 80 miles out of Vegas, there's a big thermometer. It says Baker. And then there's this sign that says Gateway to Death Valley. And if you're a stupid man, you're going to wonder what's out there. You take a side road and forget where you're at. But now, as I've drawn the map here of this journey from where we are to where we want to be, I'm going to superimpose the movie map. The movie map says we're on 2 journeys: want and need. So don't ask, what do you want? We're going to do a little handout here, a little worksheet in a moment. What do you want? Who knows what they want? It doesn't mind sharing it. What do you want?
To be successful.
Education and money. Okay, what kind of education will the money buy? Okay, I'm asking specifically what kind of education do you want? GED or high school diploma, which is actually free at one of the schools here. So actually, you can get your GED right through arts and training centers for free. So what else do you do with the money you get it? Okay, next. Who said successful? Be successful. What does that mean?
To have a career, have what you need, like house, car, things like that. Successful to me, it could be different to different people. Some people, in order to be successful, they want a big house, a nice car, But like for me, I just want like a regular car, like middle class.
Okay. Okay. Who else has something else? Yes.
I want to live comfortable and also good people.
Okay. Travel. Where do you want to travel? Everywhere. It's a travel. It's not the destination. Is that what you're saying? Oh, okay. Yes.
Build alternative healthcare facilities in third world countries and maybe Indian reservations. Make them free. And they should eventually turn them into church.
Okay. That's a fun one. That's the most impossible movie today. I am a fictional character. I'm not real. Yes. $50 million. That'd be a good achievement. By the way, success. By the way, if you study business, you're going to say business meet Forbes, right? You know the definition of success that most of them get? Now, remember, unlike the animal kingdom, humans become what they learn. Say it out loud, we become what we learn. One more time, everybody. We become what we learn. Come on, say it. We become what we learn. Come on. Okay, right. Okay, so if you're studying the business community, they probably learn business, right? Which means they probably learn from business experts or teachers, right? Just like engineers would learn from, let's say you're the engineering students or graduates, you learned engineering from engineering experts, right? The accountants would have learned from accounting experts, right? So the business people would have learned from business experts, and they define success a little different. They define success as achievement, right? Achievement of goals in reasonable time. Now, what if we superimpose that on what you said you wanted, and what you said you wanted, and we just added a little bit of expertise to that? Now, you're saying achieving what you want in reasonable time, instead of it being this big, I want to travel everywhere. It's like, I want to travel everywhere, but by January, I want to have traveled to Ensenada, Mexico. You see, by March, Honolulu, Hawaii. You got it? You see, for you, what would be the first step of achievement, right? A career, okay? So getting into a career wouldn't be signing up for a class that leads to a career. Wouldn't that be a start? See, so achieving these kinds of things in terms of steps keep us doing it. And what I want to do is I want to add from the experts any of your wants, because success might be different. Well, success is different for you. It's already different for you. Certainly different for me. on the healthcare, providing free healthcare. Do you wonder why there's a deductible on your insurance? Can I talk freely about some of the people I've interviewed over the years? Maybe we'll glean some things from it here. When I walked up and down that line in 1995, asking people, what are you doing here? Why are you doing all this stuff? Right? I continue to do it. Well, I'll tell you what I did the next week, and I won't go back. I rented 500 chairs, filled the park with chairs. Well, I didn't buy 1,500 or 1,800 for the first batch that were there. But I rented chairs, built this massive sound system. Because when I heard from that line, I heard the same 4 things. Right? Now let's suppose you 4 get an interview with me in one of my companies. I still have 3 companies. I'm again the lowest volunteer for Girl School. So if you 4 come to interview with me, and you each say something. Now remember, you've got an interview. That means I want to hire you. That means the only reason we're not going to be hired is because you said something. You said something that won't work in my company culture. You said something that told me that you don't have the skills and abilities to handle this job right now. Right? You said something that was, your beliefs were just so opposite my customers. So I'm walking up and down this line, think about from an entrepreneur, from someone who became what he learned from his dad when I was 8 years old. 8 years old, my dad was chief photographer of the Reno Journal Heroes, raised in North Las Vegas. Cinder block home. I'm just tired from the block. Anyway, I remember when we didn't have milk in the I imagine you got that lesson at 8 years old. That you knew you weren't going to get food unless you went and produced, unless you had some sort of achievement toward a goal in reasonable time. Right? By the time I need to have milk is the time that I better produce a good service. Right? So by 6th grade in Henderson, Nevada, going to Robert Taylor Elementary School, I was earning $600. Excuse me. Thank you. I was earning $600 a month collecting recyclables on the bag of my 10 speed. Because I was living alone, too. Didn't have, my dad wasn't a very good dad. He was obviously a great teacher of independence. Okay, you're 11. I wasn't that way, he was just busy doing something. Not everyone takes a class on how to do it. But you see the difference there? So what do you think the first thing happened to me? I became what I wanted. I walked into this park, I went up and down this line. I'm seeing the world from my entrepreneur eyes, from the way I was raised, some good, some bad. Right? But I'm wondering why no one in the line thought like me. But they wanted to have the stuff like me. So I built this massive. If you want to be like me, you got to be like me. Not to maybe kind of understand that. We're human beings, we become what we learn. We want to have certain things, and yet the things are in the hands of those who become those people. All the engineering is being done by the engineers. If right now there's no jobs for accountants, what do? You just wait for 10 more years until there are? You can become an engineer, right? Why? Because humans become what they learn. Right? So to me, it was the most empowering thought, but for some people, it's like, oh, I gotta go to school. Right? I got to learn something new. So I'm walking up and down this line, set up this big sound system, teaching these 4 things. I wasn't very good at it. Didn't know what I was doing. But I started to see ahas. Why? Because no one had heard this information. None of these people. But let me give you a couple other things. Not one, I did this for 3 years until there were 13 homeless people left on the streets in North Las Vegas. The population in Las Vegas, according to the census, had dropped by about 14,000. Not one of the first 10,200 homeless people that I worked with on the streets, not one of them was from Las Vegas. Is that interesting? I'm the only one in that park from Las Vegas. Okay. So that's interesting. Let's block that away. Here's the other one. All but 5 of them told me they were Christians. Well, that's weird, right? I'm raised in North Las Vegas, so my religion was for a motor company. Apparently, by 4, it's kid across the street, their parents bought Chevys. They're the Antichrist family, right? When I started to read the book, I'm a student, right? So I started to study the stuff and started to find out that these things worked. And then I realized that people were trying to build a full life on, half a verse or half of the psalm or half a scripture, if you will. So we're gonna rattle through these things. We're going to embed them. But the first thing I need to do is check the rest of your movie knowledge, and then we're going to start planting some of these formulas along the way. So, in every movie, if you're going to build a movie, we have two endpoints. We need you to think about a goal. Number one. So, house, sir, in the center. House. Travel. Travel is a goal. Yeah, travel, okay. More other goals? Here's some other goals. I'm sorry? Car. Okay.
Money.
Great. Money. Now, and I'm all for money. I'm all for 50 million, is that what you said? 50 million? Okay, 50 million.
Career.
Okay, career. And do we know what career that's going to be? What do you want?
Me, personally?
Yeah.
I want to be a high school basketball player.
Oh, I love that. Now notice when you guys tell me these things, like career job, I'm asking one more question to try to make it a little more readable. Okay? I read a book, Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and in it he said intelligence is the ability to make finer distinctions. What if the reason why you haven't got your 50 million, or the reason why you don't have the money to travel, is simply because you haven't made finer distinctions? You haven't figured out what the first step is toward the 50 million. Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, they are, but let me just think about this. Think about what if you start off without my dad, and you didn't have the right math, you didn't have the right expert, the right manager, right? Right. What if you didn't have this, all the right things going down the wrong highway? I just decided today, here's what I like to do today. I'd like to help you start a fresh movie today. I'd help you just do what the Apostle Paul said, forget the past and press toward the mark. You see? And so today we're going to start, I'm going to quiz you on your movie knowledge as someone who's watched some movies. But by the end of the day, you're going to be authoring the next movie that you're going to live into. So let's look at some movies. Now, interestingly enough, we do have these movies with animals in them. There are movies about wild things, right? You've seen these, right? Wild things. You've seen Ogre, Shrek. Here's another principle you need to know about the movies today. Every hero's journey, if you the story of the character in the film, like Shrek. You guys saw Shrek? Everyone saw it? Who did not see Shrek? Just you. We're going to get you a bit of credit for it. These are all journeys of the outer want, right? Become a homeowner, like this guy. Become a homeowner. But there's an inner journey where we're going from what we call identity to essence. Right? Identity to essence. And Shrek was this character who just put so many things around himself to protect himself from being hurt over and over again. Okay, so do you remember the part where Donkey tried to tell him ogres are like onions? Yeah. So what happens is we built up all this rough exterior that today might not fit in the world you want to. They might not allow you on a certain airline if you're Shrek. Okay, so we need to figure out a way to get you back to your core essence, right? The one you were before you were mistreated, before people stabbed you in the back, before you were thrown into prison for something you didn't do, like in the Shawshank Redemption. Today, we're also going to redefine those terms. So we have movies about, did you see Ratatouille? Movies about rats. Movies about pandas. Lions. Dragons. What else do we have? Slum dogs. Alpha dogs. Wolves. And cougars. So good. Okay, so now, the hero films are probably our best bet at getting there, because I found this mathematical model in the film. Now this one here, this new Tom Cruise film, Edge of Tomorrow. It says that we're supposed to live, die, and repeat. Live, die, repeat. What if you got a second chance to do your life again? Who would want that? Who'd take it? Oh, you would? Okay. Now, what would be one of the first things you do? Do you think you might go get a better map or better teachers, experts? What do you think? Better education, right? Some of the things, right? So in this case, this is one of those films where they got to see that. In the real world, in 1944, a guy named Viktor Frankl was on the verge of being delivered by American troops. 1938, as a medical doctor in Austria, Viktor Frankl was this guy who was thrown into prison because he was Jewish in Austria when Hitler invaded. His wife, his kids, his parents, they all were thrown in. I think only one sister survived, and he survived. 6 years in captivity, or through all this 4 different concentration camps. He wrote a book after he got out, went on to write, something like 30 books. And he said this, listen very carefully to this one. He said, live today as if you're living already for the second time. And you're about to act as wrongly as you did the first. What if you got a second chance? Would you write the movie differently? And so this is what we're going to do today. So we're going to have a screenplay exercise right after lunch where you get to put together the fictional, if you will, formulas, but plug yourself in as the character. But we need to know a couple more things. Joseph Campbell wrote a book in 1949 called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. He's the one that gave us hope that we could, that the template, the model for writing a new movie was the same for you, for me. So we could do this. He said 1,000 faces, and he says, look, it's the same story, whether it's this guy getting bullied, right? Or whether it's Tony Stark or Bruce Wayne. It's the same story of a character who must change. How many of you guys knew from the movies that in every movie that has a relatable character, conflict and obstacles, and accomplish the impossible, that the character must change? Well, come on, you watched a lot of movies. But did you know that here's the kid that was getting bullied, little runt, became Captain America? He had to change. Bruce Wayne changed into, right? Tony Stark changed into. Did you see The Matrix? Yeah, Thomas Anderson changed into. Did you see The Karate Kid? And here's one of the best ways we get, did you see The Kung Fu Kid? Here's one of the best ways to get that for me. So here's Daniel, not his fault, right? Mom moves him from East Coast to West Coast, if you remember the movie. Moves him from the East Coast to West Coast, but his after-school activity is getting his butt kicked by the Karate Kids. What's his first impulse? He runs home to Mom and he says, Mom, we have to move. Remember that? Now, pause. This is a movie. When we're in trouble, something's happened on the outside, not even our fault. Our first instinct is to change cities. Now, what do you think I was thinking about when I interviewed the first 1,854 homeless people, and not one of them was from Las Vegas? They changed cities. Weird, isn't it? See, all of a sudden I had a little epiphany. I had this little, I said, wow, it's just like the movies. Okay? But what the bridge is to the movies is, if Daniel doesn't change, it doesn't matter. What if Daniel didn't get to change cities or schools? What would happen to him after school? Same thing wherever he went. Why? It's the same guy. Right. Who remembers Happy Gilmore? Again, I studied so much research, and a massive stack of research to try to figure out who knew, which psychologists, psychiatrists, etc., knew why, and mostly men, why we had such a dogged tendency to repeat history. Why is it we end up seeing the same day over and over again? Right? We get so far in a new job, and then, we do the same thing, and we have to start over. We get to another job, and it's like that same person with a different face is there. And then we do the same thing and we have to start over. Maybe it's a relationship. We get so far up to the limit of what we know in a relationship, bam, we got to do it again. And that doesn't help us, right? Because we're trying to get from A to B, and what we end up doing is just repeating history, right? We set out, we think we're going to make it, we get just so far. Well, then I watched Happy Gilmore. Who's seen Happy Gilmore, right? Seen it, right? Here's Happy Gilmore, hockey player, thinks he's a hockey player, hasn't yet really played for a team or got paid to, right? Tries out for a team, and then the first 10, 15 minutes of that film is cut from the team, doesn't make the team. And then what does he do to the coach? Beats him up, takes out his inner aggression to the outside, right? Okay. But then, by the end of the film, how does Happy Gilmore end? Yes, he somehow, instead of trying to play hockey and being frustrated, he goes into golf. And so maybe, if we can translate this formula, 10 straight years. Guys. 16 years in prison for something he didn't do in the Shawshank Redemption. 10 straight years. Happy Gilmore, repeated history, trying out for another team, another team, another team didn't make it. And yet, in a 90-minute movie or a 2-hour movie, this guy gets free from the prison because he figures out this formula. Happy Gilmore somehow makes it. Not just in another sport, on a team, but he becomes a champion. So I studied the APA. Well, why do people repeat history? They didn't know. Let me tell you what I found out. I studied the first 10,000 total homeless people on the street. I did Harrisville Catholic Charities for 8 years. That's where we met then. 8 years of Catholic Charities, helped about 17,000 men get through there. Then did 6 months at the Shade Tree. And I'm hearing kind of the same story 700 times. That without this map, human beings... See, if you guys were horses, dogs, pigs, chickens, right? If you guys were just in the animal kingdom, you would just automatically be you. But you guys are human. You can be whatever you want. You can be whatever you learn. And therefore, we need more experts and maps, and maybe some guides to keep us on track than the animal kingdom. Right? With great power comes great responsibility. Right? So as I'm seeing these things happen over and over again, I started to realize, oh my God, this is it. The reason why human beings repeat history is we keep trying to bring the same character into each subsequent movie. We might leave Des Moines, Iowa, because things aren't working for us. We've had a hard time. And we take ourselves to Los Angeles. Doesn't work in Los Angeles, we take ourselves to Las Vegas. And all the while, we're taking that same character. We're taking Happy Gilmore and trying to have it. He's trying to defeat the evil empire, and the Empire Strikes Back. Happy Gilmore. You see, wrong character. So, the phrase that I have, that I assume, I remember I was standing there in the Catholic Charities one night, and it dawned on me, and I said, wait. People repeat history because instead of changing the character they bring into the next city, job, or relationship, they change things. They change jobs. They change lives. We change everything but the one we bring into the next one. Now, how many of you guys have the power to change your last employer's business? Probably not. Have you ever tried to change a woman? Yeah, you tried, yeah. How'd that work, right? Yeah, come on, really? The only power we have is over ourselves, but without the map that shows you how complex you are, we end up just defaulting back to what we're good at, instead of figuring out the one or two things we need to adjust to do differently in order to achieve. So here's how they do it in the movies. In every film, we have this formula. I'm gonna borrow one of these sheets here to draw this formula on there. All right. So if I to ask you right now, you've been in Hero School about an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and I'm going to ask you, why do we send human children to school? You're going to tell me what?
Learn.
To learn. And why to learn? Because learning with a human, you what? You become that. You change. Let's just call it change. In the movies, they say that Thomas Anderson has to change into Neo, right? In fact, they say it this way. Repeat it after me. The character must change. The character must change. We're not trying to change your parents. We're just trying to change the character that you bring into your movie, Happy Gilmore, Luke Skywalker, right, Farm Boy, etc. And so if we're going to turn this into a mathematical model for you or me, while we have these desires or goals on the end, we're just going to call this generally change. Now, I'm going to spell it as change, but keep in mind, all day we're going to be talking it's character change. Character change. Now, look at what's in common. For every character that changes, there's one of these guys. Who remembers this character's name in the movies? Morpheus. Okay. Who was the coach that helped Rocky change? Anybody? Remember the first one? Yeah, what was his name? Mickey, right? And who did it become later? After Mickey died, it was Apollo Creed. After Apollo Creed died, it was his wife's brother, wasn't it? It's always going to be a trainer, yes. Who saw the water? Okay. Did the character need to change? Yes, remember? And he even went to school and he was competing with the teachers, and then eventually started learning from the coach, right? So I call the character, whether it's a Morpheus, whether it's the Scottish uncle, right? Whether it's the Master Zorro in Zorro, I call that character an expert. Once we start to reverse engineer a movie formula and then try to apply it to our own lives, we need to find ourselves in the eye. Who's in the eye? Today, especially this afternoon, when we get really specific, we're going to figure out exactly what city you want to live in, what job it's going to be, what career. Because until we decide what that is, we don't know which expert we need to learn from. Now, many of us, right, if you're going to get the career and there's a skill level, you'll need an expert in the skill. But when you start making a lot of money, you might probably want an expert in money to try to get your money working for you instead of you working for it all the time. Right? But everything we want to learn, we'll probably need a series of experts, but for the sake of the formula, we need to get specific to talk about that. In 1999, someone told me I should write a book on homelessness. Like I thought everyone knew this, right? Humans become what they learn, right? They just learned the wrong thing, didn't have the right experts and the right teachers, big deal. But I decided to at least go to a seminar. I went to Anaheim, California to learn how to write the book on homelessness. And I remember being at the Anaheim Hilton. I was on the 5th floor. And I looked at my watch and I was going to be late for the seminar, right? So I meant to pay for the seminar downstairs across the way. So all of a sudden, though, is the time the ideas come for what would make a great story or a great part of the book. So here's what happened. I'm leaving my hotel room and now I'm busily writing. I'm busily writing. All of a sudden, I said, oh, this is good, this is good. I ran down the hall. I got in the elevator and finished the thought. And I said, man, that's going to be good. In fact, the first title of the book was You Can't Be a Tourist and Stay Here. Think about it, right? See, you can't just bring anybody from Kansas into Las Vegas and expect the lack of external controls to protect them past the time of their vacation. You can't act like it's a vacation for more than 3 days and expect it not to take you down. And here I was, I dealt with 10,000 homeless people, not all of them from here. Most of them just stayed one extra day. Yesterday, horrible story in the RJ about a woman that stayed one extra day on her way out of town and instead was wrapped right into prostitution. Tragedy happens when we're not being where we're supposed to be doing what we're supposed to be doing. You know this.
Mainly Vegas.
And Vegas, there are about 3 places on planet Earth that are about as powerful as Vegas. So I'm writing this story, and I start to write this thing, you can't be a tourist and stay here, but I looked up and I'm still on floor 5. I hadn't gone anywhere in the elevator at the Anaheim Hilton. Why? If you're in an elevator and you don't go anywhere, what?
You didn't push the button.
And push the button. Now, remember, this is hero school, so we're going to make a finer distinction. Pushing a button in an elevator is what? You're actually deciding where you want to go, aren't you? You're declaring a destination. And I'll tell you this, if you don't decide where you want to go, if you don't push the button, you go nowhere. So if I ask you what your goal is, but you're not really telling me what your goal is, you wonder why you don't go anywhere? Or worse. Dudes, I've been there. If you don't push a button and someone on the floor pushes a button, you get taken for a ride. All right? And Stephen Covey called it this. He says, you're not living your life, you're being lived. Right? So today, I'm going to implore you, I'm going to hound you, I'm going to try to piss you off. To get you to push a button, declare a destination, because only then can we help you with supplying the experts who then know exactly what to do. And then I'm going to ask you to commit to what you want. Meaning, if you decide what you want, we start supplying the experts, I want you to commit. Hell or high water, I want you to just commit. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Now remember, Catholic Charities, there was a guy in one of these classes, like 65 years old. He looked a little weathered, maybe looked a little older than that. And I said, what do you really want? He says, I want to be a doctor. I always wanted to be a doctor. I said, why didn't you? I said, my dad wanted me to run his business. He had no interest in that, so he ran away for 40 years. And I said, well, let's work on you being a doctor. And he says, I'm like 65, man, it'll take you like 10 years. And I said, well, how old will you be in 10 years if you don't become a doctor? Yeah, except not a doctor. Without doctor friends, right? Right? I don't care if you got one more year scheduled to live on the planet. At least start committing to the things you've always wanted to do. And look for the people to help you get there. When you commit, lots of other things start to move. Again, we got a lot of great people here willing to help you, but you got to commit to it as much as we're committed to it. Not sure where I can tell you. Okay, so it was early on, it was about 2005. I had the rows in this Catholic Charities class like this. And now notice, conflict, right? Who remembers Lethal Weapon? Lethal Weapon? All right, who wants to play Murtaugh? All right, there you go. Okay, here we are, Riggs and Murtaugh, right? Because I am the wild guy. All right. So we have two characters, right? This is how they write it in the screenplay. Now, don't shy away. When you start to write your movie this afternoon, don't shy away from the conflict. Don't keep running from someone or some personality type that scared you in the past. There is a way around or through or over that.
Talking about himself, right?
No, I'm talking about other people here. Oh, you'll figure it out yourselves. 20 minutes. Okay, right now, from the 1800s, it's like genius. Wish I'd written it. So here's the way they write it in the screenplay. They put the conflict in there to drive the change, right? In the churches, we say amen, 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 to get us all just to follow. But we need a leader here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put you, Murtaugh. Your character, your personality type is the one that you did your time, you did everything you were told, you're just a couple months away from getting your gold watch and your bass boat. Oh my God, it's going to be great. And then out of the blue, your captain, boss, and it's usually something you'll get to choose, takes us off. So you're paired with me, Riggs. Loose cannon, right? Doesn't, I throw myself in front of guns trying to get shot, and you just know that I'm going to get you when your risk level's gone way up.
Sitting on the toilet
Sitting on the toilet seat with the bomb on it. Absolutely. So they put these two together to emphasize this type of conflict. But the conflict, remember, the goal is to drive change to accomplish the what? Impossible. The impossible. So we try to avoid it. We actually have classes to try to reduce conflict. When in fact we're supposed to figure out a way to move through conflict so we can accomplish the impossible. So here's what happened. Riggs and Murtaugh put together, here comes all this conflict. Well, there's a moment, all of a sudden, I've never had backup because I'm wild loose cannon, I drink. Why do I drink and why do I try to kill myself? Anybody? My character? Riggs. Did you spell, who called me crazy? No, it's crazy. Right, because the classic hero in films, mythology, when you look even for comic books, is as soon as they get close to somebody, someone goes after them to get to the hero. Right, so I have, my wife got killed, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying not to get close to somebody, right? So it's not one of those Shrek layers, right? Okay. So you go out there, we judge people for this, but it's a very, very real story. So here I am, you're the family man, I'm a loose cannon loner. We're put together, and then you save my butt, which is a kind of a trust deposit. Now I'm thinking, well, maybe he can take care of himself and so forth. Then I save yours. And what happens through the course of this movie is each of us reduces or lets go of a bit of that identity, that layer, that bulletproof exterior, to where we find out that the two of us working together can do the impossible. Whereas alone, I'm probably headed toward suicide, and you're headed toward, well, your wife wants nothing to do with you because you've been heroic since your first day on the force, right? So you see the characters change through this kind of conflict. So here I was in this classroom at Catholic Charities early on, and this guy, I just decided to pick on him. It was horrible. Because the guy had to be 2 feet taller than me, tall and skinny, like Hell's Angels type. And he was on the front row here. And the reason why I wanted to pick on him is because he had tattoos on his forehead. Tattoos. 3 big blotches. I couldn't tell what they were. 60-ish. I think I found out later how old he was. So I finally asked him what his tattoos were, and I joked. I said, are they the 3 Powerpuff Girls? Who remembers the Powerpuff Girls? Anybody ever see those things? Who were they? Blossom, Buttercup, and Bubbles. Exactly. So you can see that this is exactly what this rough Hell's Angel dude didn't want to hear. Okay. So he's running or whatever. We're going through the hero school. Maybe as boring as this one, maybe more fun. I did maybe 500, 600 of them there at Catholic Charities. We're getting through the hero school. And I said, so what's playing in your head? What are you still listening to? And why aren't you doing what you said what you wanted to do when you were like 16? And I heard, and these are these cheap plastic tables, but over on this desk, I'm in the back of the room talking to people, and all of a sudden there's this massive thud on the desk. And it was the guy's head. And I said, what? I said, what? I said, well, we're talking about what we learned, right? What did you learn? Some people, well, what are your songs? Right? What are your songs? My work very analog. I know, laugh all you want. I became the guy that women leave. Did you ever hear those songs? Right? What if you really did become what you learned? And every song you sang, you have. Well, we were having this little joke, this little conversation in the back of the room. All of a sudden, bam! And I said, "What's wrong? You okay?" And he said, "My sobbing." He says, "My songs." I said, "What were your songs?" And he said, "Highway to Hell." And something, Born to Be Wild. And then he started to tell the story to the rest of the class how at 16 he was so tired of his religious parents, he rebelled by putting the 666 on his forehead, which 50 years later looked like the 3 Powerpuff Girls. But for the 40 years, he hadn't changed. He's still the little kid living out of the song or the tape or the CD of this rebellion, and yet he's still living to get back at his parents, not living his life. We didn't get to choose our parents. There's some great parents out there, thank God for them. There's some other parents out there. Drone strike. I don't know, whatever it is, right? But the point is that this is the time at which we're probably supposed to build the life we want. If not now, when? When? I need you to have a little trust and commitment. But more than that, if you've struggled for a while, you're young, right? I'm not, right? And what if I had to build my map or my model or my movie today? Guys, if you're my age, I need you to just draw a line in the past for a while and not keep kicking yourself for what you wish you did. And put all of your energy into building this next movie, the one you really want. The one you really want. It's like a storage unit. If you ever carried a bunch of crap from the past in a storage unit, I remember us paying like $3 a month for a storage unit for like 5 years for stuff that I was saying, oh no, it's valuable, but after $3 a month for 5 years, that was more than the cost of the stuff in the storage unit.
You don't know.
Yeah. So here's what I'm asking you to do. We're gonna work on this goal sheet. I need you to take eyes up just for a moment. I need you to take all the stuff you've been through, the past, the stuff that didn't work out right now. And I need you to just, kind of metaphorically grab it and just shove it all into a storage unit. Okay? Everything from before this day. And just shove it in there and then close the door. And then I need you to kind of step free from it. It's the closest we're going to get to you being you and not you seeing the world through all the crap that you've been through. Okay. Now, Emily and her team, can you bring me those gold sheets?
Yes.
We're gonna get you, and we're gonna take 5 minutes and do this exercise before lunch. And I'm gonna show you some fast stuff with this formula, and then you're gonna get very excited for lunch, and then we're gonna start using it all afternoon to get some stuff done. So I'm gonna hand you this sheet, and again, it's a goal sheet, but I want you to look at it. Don't write on it until everyone has a copy. And while they're passing them out, I'm gonna let you know about today's raffle items. Yeah, so today, after lunch, you're going to come back in here and get a raffle ticket. Raffle items today, of course, include a football, some of my favorite things. It also includes a bike lock, but if anyone wants to, I hope you want to win the bike, because it's a pretty good one. So if anyone's interested in a bike, is that on your want list? Okay, so we have this. We have a number of backpacks on the raffle today. Let's see what else we have today. Oh, this just came in from Samsonite. I don't know if you're traveling still or if you're thinking about traveling, but this may be the coolest backpack of all time. Duffel bag with wheels. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so we've got some fun things. And here's the other part. If you stay through the day and for lunch and stuff like that, we'll definitely, everyone, we have enough to give you each a bus pass, if you want that. We'll have sign-up sheets at the end of the day as well to sign up for classes. And then, who needs ID? Who is short on ID, birth certificate? Make sure you sign up on the list, and we'll get that taken care of. We'll start by getting it taken care of this week. It might take a while, obviously, for the authorities, wherever you were born, to get the stuff to us. But we'll start getting all that this week. All right, everyone have your sheet in front of you? I'm going to borrow yours. It says on this side here, take a look at my hands first. We've done two things here. We put on the, we have given you the wrong sheet. No, we're still, yeah, we're fine. This is fine. This is fine. We'll give them the other sheet as supplement. We have another sheet called the Heroes Exercises, which give you a list of strategies. But here's what we have on the I will succeed is the side we're going to work on. I will succeed. Now notice it's a fill in the blank kind of template. Fill in the blank kind of template. Perfect. Right? It says you can. Okay, I don't know how we got multiple. So you have all the right one. I have the wrong one, but these will work. It either says I will succeed or you will succeed. Do you have the other ones? Yeah, let me get it. Thank you. Before you leave, you'll get the actual one, but the template's the same. You're going to start by writing your next goal. Your next goal. A goal. Something achievable. Something attainable. Something you want to get done. You, sir, I would say get my ID. Okay? That would be your primary goal, right? Who else can give me a good primary goal? Something that life would be better if you got it done. A job. Okay? Put it down, a job, and I will get more specific. Finish school, how many years is that? 18 more credits. Okay, so let's finish a class. Let's get one class under your belt. You're in school right now, you're in class right now. Okay. 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 All right, so you're on it. Okay. So you might even ramp up the goal beyond the education. Okay, we're going to pick a goal so we can support it with this. So we're going to write down the goal, and I give you the 5 minutes, but let me finish explaining this sheet. It says, write down the goal, and then notice this quote. See the bold quote in the center? I remember the first time I heard this quote. It was when my second wife left me. And I opened a book by Stephen Covey, and I read this guy's quote that said, the successful person has the habit of doing things failures don't want to do. And isn't that true, right? If you want to be healthier, you got to do things that unhealthy people won't do, right? So this is kind of your motivation fuel to do it, right? So I wanted you then to list some things you're going to do that are above and beyond in order to get that goal accomplished. Something you might replace, something you're willing to give up. If you play basketball with your friends 2 hours a week, but you need to study 2 hours a week to do something, or take a typing class and it'll change your future, then maybe you're willing to give up an hour of the basketball. You understand? This is the way the form goes. So then it says, in the middle, put your name. Why don't you all write your name right now after the word so? This is a message to you that you're going to read to yourself. And when you read it, it'll say, so, Jeremy, the things you don't want to do are the very things you must do first in order to succeed. Now, here's how this is going to trick you. When you wake up in the morning, eyes up for a moment, please, just so I can see you. When you wake up in the morning and you don't feel good, and you got all kinds of, you might have somebody stole something from you or whatever, I don't want you to do what you think or feel. I want you to do what you planned. Because this is going to be the difference between what happened before today and how you're going to live your life from now on. Most of the time when men or women get derailed, it's because we do what we think and what we feel based on the circumstances we're in. And it gets us off that road to what we really want. Because as you know, if you complete and get those 18 credits done, young man, you get those 18 credits, your life's going to be very different. So why would you let anything get in the way of that thing? That's why we want this goal sheet to be important to you. Then it says, and then just believe it, and then notice you're going to say some things to yourself after you fill out the bottom. It says, say, I will accomplish my goal because I am making a habit of doing the things I know I must do first. Would you repeat those words after me? I'll say it in little chunks. I will accomplish my goal.
I will accomplish my goal.
Because I'm making a habit.
Because I'm making a habit.
Of doing the things I know I must do.
I know I must do.
First.
First.
Say first. First. Guys, I just do first things first. And you know it's pretty much a sure. Okay. All right, so take a couple minutes with this and figure and put some stuff down. We're going to take a couple of minutes, and then if you have a question or you have a hard time figuring something out, just holler, wave at me or us. Write something down. Write something down. Write your goal down, and then write some things that you know you need to do in the steps below.
This be like a long-term goal?
Let's make this the first most important thing today, because it's the next big one. If you want to be an author, write a book, but you couldn't type it 4 words a minute. First most important goal would be take a typing class. Right? Do you understand?
So, like, if I could graduate from Larson, would that be a
huge, great goal, great goal? Because as you know, everybody graduating from anywhere is like a challenge to it. There's so many distractions, so many voices telling us what we should be doing instead. It's a great goal. So your first goal is to finish the goal. So is that you have a relationship with teachers. So if you just have to teachers. So you have identification school. So when you first start, you should start. Teachers and those things, you can start with like that. Establishing relationships you're going to know some factors. You're going to start studying. Here's one. Every single week, we're going to read a business magazine. How we doing? Anyone want to share a goal that they've written down? Yes.
Larson and getting my GED.
Clayton Larson, getting your GED. Excellent. Now, what are you willing to do differently to make that happen?
Learn math, learn my grammar,
State office.
Who else? Yes.
Learn from experts.
Learn from experts. Do you realize that's not natural? It's not natural. Natural is to find people just like us. So we're going to try to find people of the same age group, maybe the same nationality, maybe the same culture, maybe the same proximity. And yet, in order to accomplish what we want, we've got to go step outside of that to learn from experts. Yes?
My goal is to continue my medical.
Okay. Do you have, now we talked about success earlier, is in a reasonable time. Maybe on yours you want to put down, by when will you get that certificate? By when will you get that certificate?
Say from graduate 9 months from now.
How many?
9 months.
9 months from now is when? What month is that? June. So here's what I'd like you to do, since you're in and already rolling, is to and graduate in June 2015. Who?
I'm with the Larson Institute, so I want to complete that. To do that, I got to expand my memory. Work on typing, see importance of what I'm doing every day, organize my life.
Look, that's great. Sacrifice your comfort, right? You know, I tell you, that's me. Let me just tell you, I have this theory that the older you get, the more you feel like you shouldn't have to do the same thing twice. I've already done that. I've already paid that price. Why am I having to do this again? And that is a tape that plays in your head. And so, but again, that's why I want you to draw a line and shove stuff in the storage unit. Because you've got to come up through as if it's your first day try. You got to just come out of that thing. It's my first attempt to become someone who travels. Now think about your goals for travel. How could you accomplish the travel? Now, let's parallel that to Happy Gilmore. Okay? He thought his great slap shot was only for hockey. He later found out, because of some expertise, that he could do it in golf. Right? And more than that, it would help him also complete the other parts of him, i.e. the part that repeated history, i.e. the part that beat up a coach instead of learning from one. But there are a number of ways to travel, right? What if your first job was on a cruise ship? There'd be some travel, and you get paid much because you're on a cruise ship, right? What if you studied to become a travel agent and you went on tours where you took people places? Do you see? Do you see how you decide that destination, then you start to break it down? You can kind of come up now with great ideas for getting that done. In other words, you don't just have to have $50 million and just pay Virgin Atlantic and go flying. Right? There are lots of ways to start getting in the travel game that also fix a few of the other things from the past. Yeah. Good? Yes? Okay. All right, so now heads up, I'm going to show you a few things on the board. We're going to complete our formula. I want you to write this down. The goal then, as we found out in every hero film, is change. Right? The movies are all different, right? You could look at Iron Man and tell me the story, but the goal is Tony Stark must change from being a self-serving playboy, right, into somebody who thinks of other people, and in order to be that kind of person, he's got to change. He's got to learn to do things differently, or he'll lose pepper pots. He'll lose everyone that's important that he didn't consider to begin with, right? If we took a look at Thomas Anderson in Matrix, right, it wasn't just about him. Right? It was now about something bigger, and only when he sacrifices himself to save Morpheus does he find his true life. Right? It's like when you get yourself off your mind, your world increases. So the goal is always the change, like from Thomas Anderson, Peter Parker, into Spider-Man, etc. So the expert corresponds to your change, right? So maybe start now looking up people who are travel agents. Find tour companies, bus companies, and instead of just asking for a job, find out who the expert is and start saying, how did you get into this? Right? And so here's your first formula. The first formula is you find that expert. Instead of going for the money, get the expert. Find the Morpheus. And then act like a student. See? So you ask them questions. Don't ask for their stuff. Ask, how did you get your stuff? Right? And then once you get there, oh, I love your pens, Kevin, thank you. Now they're going to tell you, well, you need to do this, 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 and this. I call those exercises. Right? If you say, I want to get this house, or let's just say you want to get the car. What else do you need to get a car? What if you had a car? If you had a car right now, but just a car, where are you going to park it? Whose? Right? Right? You can't park on this street without it costing you $20 a day. Right? Do you understand? You need to have some place. You see all those steps. So you got to take care of that, right? You got to try to take care of that. And you have to have insurance, right? Registration. You can't even come in my neighborhood, in my gated community within the gated community, to visit me if your car's not registered. I actually had a retired Metro police officer who's on my board forget to register his car. I called him over for a meeting. He wouldn't let him in, which is pretty fun. Not really, I guess, but so you got to be. So that's part of responsibility too, right? And you got a character change to go along with those steps, right? But what we know, and of course what you remember from my hero school class, is the same thing I learned from my football coach in high school, right? Is that if you do more push-ups every day, right? What happens? You get stronger, right? The more you do, the more you can do. Say it out loud. The more I do, the more I can do. So you're looking to find a way to do more, right? So instead of asking for stuff, you say, what must I do to have stuff? You're always looking for what must I do. Say that out loud. What must I do? And just like doing push-ups, getting stronger, you have to act like a student to the experts' exercises and do them for some period of time. Like we said about success, it's achievement in a reasonable time. Okay? You've got to have a timeline on that, or you'll get complacent. Other things will start to get in the way. You'll start to dilute your purpose. So, if we looked at the movies, we find that Alejandro in The Mask of Zorro acted like a student, right? Who was the expert? Remember the movie? The old Zorro, right? What were some of the exercises he had to do? Do you remember the Master's Wheel? The Master's Wheel was just like mine telling you to shove stuff into the storage unit. That when you start your training, there's nothing in your world but you and your instructor and your trainer. And as you start to master your training, the rest of the world starts to come closer until the problems you couldn't face meet you. And now you're the one who can beat them. Come on, these are good movies. I know where you've been. All right. So we'll go back to the easy one. Karate Kid. What were some of the exercises? Right, wax on, wax off. Paint the fence, right? Sand the floor, right? But now pause. Notice that none of these were offense. They were all to protect you. And so here's what we do as young men in America primarily, is we ran out to go get money, do offense, sales, get cash, without learning how to protect the money we got. See? So when you get to the expert, remember, most of what an expert teaches you is how not to lose the job you did, how to make every step count, how to make the relationship better every day, not just keep repeating history. So wax on, wax off, make the fence, sand the floor is a great lesson in that. All right, so can you see that this, now we're going to apply this formula to all kinds of realms in the afternoon, but make sure you've written it down. Everyone written it down? Yeah. Now I just say it this way. Notice it says C over time equals change. So say it out loud, C over time. C over time equals change. Okay, so if you decide I want to change into a entrepreneur, who does your expert have to be? Probably someone who's already good at entrepreneurship, right? Right? Not another student, not a friend, not a parent, right? You want to be a good parent, who does your expert have to be? A good parent. If you want to be an engineer, who does your expert have to be? Right? Someone who's already mastered, if you will, using the martial arts term, who's already mastered engineering, right? Oh, come on, really? All right, now here's the last thing. Every week you're given a gift. On Monday you'll get a gift. In fact, you get 2 gifts, because on Monday at 1 o'clock, I will be back for the completion of this Hero School. Here's the way this Hero School Phase 1 works. There's this morning, this afternoon, which is money and jobs. And then Monday at 1 o'clock in the Larson trailer is a Q&A. The Q&A is glorious because in the morning here we've done this big general, maybe sometimes boring, sometimes ethereal. This afternoon we get kind of practical. Where's the money? How do we get it? What did I do wrong at the last interview? And then Monday is specific. It's your question, your issue, what didn't work for you, answered in real time. And so that's the completion is this Monday. But on Monday, 2 gifts. You get me and Kim Possible at 1 o'clock. And you also get 168 brand new hours to live for the next week. Think about it. Every single, you have like an account in a bank of living where you're going to get 24 hours in every day times 7 days. 24 hours times 7, 168 hours. Now we're going to ask you, now that you have this goal that's pretty important, how much of the 168 are you going to give to your goal? Did you realize that? Every week you get 168. Every week, Bill Gates got 168. Steve Jobs got 168. Believe that. Brother Teresa got 168. You, me, all we get. We don't get any more than that. We all get the same amount deposited into our life account. Exactly. And I think what we confessed is we were going to do the first things first. So maybe the most important thing based on your goal was work, right? Why? Because work allows you to exchange your time for money, right? So if that's, say, 40 hours of work so we could get some money, how many do you have left over? 168 minus 40 is how much? Look at that, 128. So let me get this straight. If you work an entire week, 40 hours a week, you still have 128 hours left over? Yes. So I suggest some school, right? Let's suppose it was Larson at 35 hours a week plus some homework, maybe plus some practice. So let's just call that 40 education, right? Maybe you're not in Larson. Maybe you're spending half the time at Larson, half for some other program you're in that you have to be in, right? Either way, you're investing in your future self through education, right? Because you become what you learn, right? So whatever you're learning is changing you in the future. So you subtract this and you have 88 left over. Now we're going to let you sleep. Just not first. Okay? And if it, 8 hours a night times 7 days is 56, leaving you 32 left over to screw off. Here's a problem with the human life. This deposit, this amount of money, it's not like the one in your bank that just stays there. The life bank account is constantly ticking, whether you do your first things or not. Whether you decide to be interrupted by friends doing something else or pushing a different button or not. And that's why this is the time in which you've got to be in charge of you. You've got to be in charge of your hours. You've got to be in charge of your future, who you want to be, the kind of life you should be living. So you've got to stick to what's first. This afternoon, if you have some questions too, we'll find out, well, what do I say to somebody that wants to try to get me? Well, most of you can probably answer that for the other people. But you've got to start living by your plan so you're not being lived by somebody else's. And then the last thing to make you really feel good before you go to lunch. I'm going to give you a few threes. I'm going to give you 3 things for goals. You want to jot these down quickly? Accomplish any goal. It's this easy. Write down your goals. Whatever it is. Be specific. Write down your goals. That's number 1. Number 2, make plans to achieve them. And then number 3, work on those goals every day.
2.
Oh, no, repeat them all three. Number 1 is write down the goals. Number 2, make plans to achieve them. My goal is to go to LA to do some voiceover work, right? That's your goal. Okay, make plans to achieve them. You got to figure out how to get to LA that costs less than the amount of money you're going to make in LA. Not with me, does that make sense to you? And then work on those plans every day. Now that you know how much it's going to cost, how much of your time it's going to take, and how good a shape your voice needs to be in, you're going to work on those things every day until 3 weeks from now you can go to LA, get it done, come back with the money, and accomplish the goal. But what I've done is given you a formula that will always work if you work it. Okay, ready for another one? Here's another quickie before lunch. I call this a success formula. I talked to foster care youth. Foster care youth typically didn't have parents. I saw in many cases it was a good thing because now they're Luke Skywalker learning from Obi-Wan Kenobi instead of at the limit of what their parents could have taught them anyway. Let's say Harry Potter, learning from McGonagall, learning from Dumbledore, learning from a bunch of experts. And here's what I taught them. I said, here are 3 ways to always ensure your success. 3 things, right? Know your number. Know your number. Number 1 is know your number. Know your number. And I almost put a number sign, and people would have said, oh, that's a hashtag. Whatever, my whole formula. Know your number. What does that mean? Here we go. Eyes up. In this universe, we have some laws that govern things like motion, right? Gravity, right? We also have a truth that you can't walk 1 foot on planet Earth without it costing somebody some money. Right now, someone's paying the electrical money, right? Right now, people have invested millions to put this property here so we could do this. Kevin's used his money from his work to buy the sound system so we could all be heard. Okay? Food is coming from a restaurant across town. Matt, make sure you say hi. He's an entrepreneur. If you want to be an entrepreneur, maybe it makes sense while you're there getting your food, say, hey, maybe sometime I could ask you some questions on how to be an entrepreneur, right? Makes sense. But know this, when I say know your number, this is where you're going to have to do some work and find out how much it costs you to live each day. Why is that important? Well, you want a house. And while the banking industry allows us to use something called a mortgage to have more house than we can afford all in one lump sum, for you to be in charge of your house, you need to make sure you have as much money as that costs to live. Let's suppose you want your own apartment. So what I want you to do is, when I say know your number, you just have to know that I'm going to live roughly 30 days a month, right? My monthly expenses are going to be, let's say for easy number, $3,000 to live happily, right? Which means you have to earn this to be free, which your daily number then is 30 into 3,000, $100 a day. Know your number. That means if you bring in your 100, and again, look at your face. I'm reading your nonverbals right now. You're saying, man, that's a lot. Well, that just means you're telling me you only think you can have that much. You'll never get his 50 million. By the afternoon, you're going to change your face completely. You're going to say, sure, just get it. I've watched more kids lose 7 years of their life avoiding to pay an errant cell phone bill. They got their first phone, and it was like $750, and they ran away from the debt. When they could have come to this class and learned how to earn $5,000 a month, which would have made $700, seem like nothing. You see, got to shift you from who you've been and what you've been struggling with over into, hey, I'll just produce more. Oh, I can't produce more there until I learn that. Okay, I'll go to that class, I'll learn that, and then I'll do more. Right? You really living life, you in charge. Right? So you earn $100 a day in order to be free. Because remember, when you pay, you get to choose. You get to pick. When you don't pay, you send it to somebody else's loan. They tell you what to do. Remember, someone else is paying. I'm trying to get you to be in charge. You pay. Your goal is to get to the place where you pay. You don't just get another free meal. Okay. So that's number 1. Know your number. Number 2, I just broke this pen. Number 2, work within the system. Work within the system. So you get your car, you rent an apartment, you got the space, you got the license, you got the insurance, everything's legal. And you go 65 to 45. And you get a $400 ticket, which totally upsets your income amount for $3,000 a month. It's now $3,400. It's now more than $100 a day. And now all of a sudden you're in jeopardy of losing everything you've done because you didn't obey or fit within the system. The system was there. So this is where most people do it. They make all this income, but then all these other things because they, you know, I see so many people with hospital bills because they didn't walk in a crosswalk. And you have to really measure these faculties in. And then the last one, number 3, to keep everything you earn, is always do what you say. And this isn't just about your character, not just because people won't trust you if you keep telling them one thing and then you do another or you don't do what you say you're going to do. There's more to it than that. Especially this afternoon, when we talk about business and profession, banking, entrepreneurship. People don't judge us for what we do. They judge us for what we say that we don't do. Right. If you say, I'll have this done, and you don't, that's what they're judging you for, that you said it. If you don't say it, you're probably going to get out of it. So always do what you say really means that if you can't practice it, don't preach it. If you commit to it, then you move heaven and earth to make it so. That's one of the best formulas for never having to lose the money in your pocket. All right, so now we're going to, I'm sorry.
You said this is 3 ways what?
3 ways. Well, I was going to say it's my success formula, but it's really how to keep all the money you earn. But now it's lunch, and then come back in the afternoon. We're going to have a. Did you learn anything? Was there something good here for you?
Yes.
That was
Totally.
kind of a quiet, powerful class, but let's we're going to hopefully be fun this afternoon. I'll get a sense of humor. Thank you. Okay, so.